Hello and welcome to my video. In this video, I will discuss the differences between an open, an obscure and a concealed threat. I will discuss these because many people have asked on this and other forums about the differences. Thank you to all those people who asked about the threat, because in making this video, it's brought up many finer points that are worth discussing in more depth. So I will discuss it in another video. In an open and obvious threat, which everyone recognises, there is undeniable physical evidence. A person is aware and has information in the mind from the physical evidence that they see or hear. In an obscure threat, there is no physical evidence. This can be potentially recognised by everyone, but not everyone has been in such a situation as to appreciate it. The person becomes aware, but there is no apparent danger. No physical evidence is seen. The person becomes aware, but they have only a gut feeling or an intuition indicating danger. This gut feeling is the result of information gained through ESP, extrasensory perception, or what I call direct mental perception. The information is gained owing to a mental entanglement which arises with close relationship. Sometimes a moderate relationship may have sufficient entanglement, but usually it requires a close relationship. Or people relating in the present moment, in each other's presence. So, for instance, in my example, the offenders who are posing the threat may be co-workers, so they know the victim well enough. The information is gained owing to mental entanglement due to close relationship. It can be strangers seen or heard, but there needs to be two conditions for this to happen. One is that the strangers are holding ill intent. The other is that the person who becomes aware of the strangers holding the ill intent is a highly aware individual. In this case, their thinking may be interrupted as they perceive ideas which give them information of the stranger's ill intent. This needs to be an individual who is mindfully aware, living in the moment. But even an ordinary person who is paying attention at that moment and sees them may become suspicious and ask themselves, who are they? What's this about? And this essentially calls forth information to arise in the mind that tells them about their awareness. This is a form of remote viewing. For most people who are engaged in random thinking all the time, are so distracted as to miss even the awareness, much less become suspicious. We tend to think that we can engage in random thinking while doing mundane actions such as walking or even showering, etc. But this is not only not economical, it can potentially put us at risk. So, in an obscure threat where there is relationship and thus mental entanglement, the person has ideas arising in the mind, giving them information indicating either some ill intent or a threat. The third case is the concealed threat. This threat is also obscure because there is no physical evidence. the weapon is hidden and the person or persons posing the threat are not acting out. In fact, the criminals will look normal, behave in an everyday normal fashion, blend in with the crowd. And the chief offender does not even have to be on the scene because he or she only needs to exploit close relationship. And of course, ill intent is mental. However, in the case of the concealed threat, things are a lot worse for the targeted person. In both the concealed threat and the obscure threat, the person does become aware of danger. They become aware of the threat. But unlike the obscure threat, in a concealed threat, the targeted person has no information in the mind to tell them anything about their awareness. The awareness is vague. There are no ideas, no information in the mind indicating that they are being threatened or that there is danger. No information arising in the mind due to intuition becomes a real pitfall because ideas can be introduced through ESP, telepathy, by somebody closely related. So why does this happen in the concealed threat? Why doesn't the person's intuition give them information? The answer is that in the concealed threat there are other cheats involved which were done at an earlier time and where information was declined and marked not to arise in mind at any future time, together with the awareness. One of these cheats is done routinely by all inhumane people very early in establishing new relationships, sometimes almost immediately. This cheat enables the inhumane person to mentally present ideas utilizing their real and hateful character, but with the ideas being perceived by the targeted person as simply ideas popping into mind. I discuss this in video 4 of my video series on the underlying conditions of disease. To explain this here briefly, the inhumane person who is only known through their mark will say or do something trivial but hurtful or nasty, showing momentarily their real and hateful character. Then the targeted person is pushed to accept that whatever was said or done was not really meant, that it was an accident or a mistake. And the targeted person may accept this as they see it as inconsistent with the person they know. But of course, they only know the mark. They don't know that it's an inhumane person with whom they are in some sort of relationship. And that may be personal, friend, relative, or it might be professional, boss, co-worker, or somebody they know socially. Hence, in dismissing the hateful character that they had glimpsed, they mark information in the mind relating to the hateful character as not valid or not relevant. In doing so, the information will not arise with any future awareness that they may have of the hateful character of the inhumane person. This means that the inhumane person has gained an advantage, which is to present ideas in the mind but at the same time remain unseen. The other cheat in euphemistic language is called making an introduction or arranging a meeting. This can be as little as an hour earlier to the foul game play or a few days earlier to the foul game play, This has to do with the relational entanglement of the criminals with the targeted person. This relationship, while trivial, is effective as it is tethered to the strong relationship with the chief offender. So it is a three-way relationship, but it is also an uncommon relationship. The reason being that while the targeted person sees the criminals to be used in the foul game play, they don't know or guess that the strangers that were seen are criminals. They simply look ordinary, and they don't know that the chief offender knows the strangers and knows that they are criminals and is in cahoots with them. I discussed this in my third video of my video series on the underlying conditions of disease. Here again, the targeted person is caused to notice the criminals, is aware, but as the event seems ordinary, of no significance, they discard the information they had gained. Now here, if the person becomes suspicious and isn't willing to dismiss what they've seen or heard, the chief offender will again move to push them to dismiss what they've seen as irrelevant. And usually that's done by saying something like, "What's the matter with you?" or "What, are you paranoid or something?" Paranoid is a label that no one wants to have put on them. It's equivalent to saying, "Are you mentally ill?" and to be shunned. It's a very, very powerful argument to cause the person to dismiss the information. And of course, it's on false grounds. The information is marked as irrelevant. So at some future time, the targeted person will become aware of the criminals that are used in the foul game play. However, the information does not arise in the mind, and thus the targeted person becomes disadvantaged as so cannot properly appraise their bodily reactivity as the feeling of fear. They will also become aware of the nasty character of the chief offender. However, in both cases, they don't have knowledge. They have marked the knowledge as irrelevant. That knowledge does not arise with awareness. So they don't have consciousness of the situation. It's become subconscious because it's awareness without knowledge. Consciousness being awareness with knowledge. I will be making a video about the mind in order to explain all of this further. So they will react because they have awareness. They will have a physical reaction in their body. If they're being threatened, that reaction, of course, is fear, or what doctors call the fight or flight response. But having no knowledge as to what their awareness is, they will not be able to properly praise their bodily reactivity as the feeling of fear. They do not know that they are being threatened and feeling fear. They may simply think that they are feeling hot all of a sudden, or that there is a high emotional charge. And this is where the problem lies. I will be making many videos to describe the various pitfalls, particularly the disease conditions, but also other conditions. Let us look at a very quick example of this pitfall just to sum up for this video. Let us say this inhumane person wants $20,000 from his mother or his mother-in-law. They first ask what they want. Before she has time to think, he poses a concealed threat. because of course he already has the criminals outside waiting ready. The mother's metabolism is fired up as she becomes aware of the danger, but without knowledge. She does not know what the higher excitation means, even if she becomes aware of it or acknowledges it. Then the inhumane person supplies, through telepathy, a response. Something like, yes, son, I'll give you the money since you need it. Thus, through telepathy, the mother will perceive the ideas, but she will believe it's her own thinking because she doesn't have knowledge of the inhumane, hateful character of the son or son-in-law. At the same time, she has a higher emotional charge, which we normally experience with agreement. Our heart beats slightly faster. So she identifies her feelings as agreement that verify what she believes is her thinking. So he will get the response he has supplied when she echoes the words she thought she had thought. But of course, were only her perceptions of ideas presented to her mentally by her son or her son-in-law. Now, if she has second thought and resists the ideas in mind and thus deny him the $20,000, he will then move to give some of what my late psychopathic husband called encouragement, damage control. He will allow some time to pass and then have her experience a really bad feeling, a panic attack. He will then move to comfort her so that the bad feeling goes away. In his presence, with his comforting, she ends up with a good feeling, so she may offer the money. But even if she doesn't, he will ask again sometime later and get the money because she will feel indebted to him or that he's her saviour, that she needs him to feel safe. The same threat is used for the ask, the panic, and the comforting. But the ideas are different. However, it is also important to realise that the conditions are changed by varying the intention. The threat remains the same, the intent is changed. So it is very important that what we do with information, how we mark information, whether we mark it as relevant or irrelevant or significant or insignificant, makes a lot of difference whether we have that information available to us when we need it again. This is very important, so I will be making a video to explain how this problem of the lack of knowledge can be reversed. Thank you for viewing my video. And here is two goannas who came into my yard to have an argument.